They assumed she was just a janitor, but her 9 languages shocked the general at 3 a.m. A storm raged outside, thunder crashing like 1,000 hammers against the walls of the National Security Agency. The clock read 3 a.m. when the door creaked open, and in ambled a figure cloaked in shadows. It was just the janitor, or so they thought. Few ever took a second glance at Ella, the unassuming woman with her mop and bucket, slipping silently through the dimly lit halls. What they didn't know was she was more than just a janitor. She harbored a mind that had mastered 9 distinct languages. Each one a key to unraveling even the darkest secrets of the world. With each brush of her mop against the floor tiles, she felt the thrill of power coursing through her veins. The sullen gray of the walls looked more daunting in the fading light. Ella noticed the flicker of the security cameras, a constant reminder that she was being watched. But what they didn't see was the glint of determination in her eyes. She was a storm brewing, and tonight, she would reveal herself. What had started as a simple job cleaning the halls of the government's nerve center was morphing into something bigger, something electrifying. Her years of foreign language study in the shadows, going from bustling classrooms to sterile hallways, was finally aligning into a purpose. As she wiped the surfaces, whispers brushed the edges of her consciousness. Rumors swirled of an impending operation on the highest level. Tension crackled in the air, thick like fog. And then, boom! The door swung open, revealing General Harrington, a giant of a man, flanked by 2 agents whose faces were drawn tight with anxiety. What on earth? He started, eyes narrowing in disbelief at the sight of her. His voice boomed through the silence, as if shaking the very foundations of the building. Ella stood frozen, heart pounding against her ribcage like a wild rabbit. She couldn't believe this moment was finally happening. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. And just like that, the tension hung heavier than the storm outside. The general's gaze pierced her, drawing a bead of sweat down her back. Would he see her as more than the invisible hand that kept the floors clean? Would he recognize the incredible potential hidden beneath the surface? Just before she could respond, the lights flickered and the power cut out, plunging them into inky darkness. A hush fell over the room, followed by the hum of her heartbeat. Ella's pulse quickened. Suddenly, the stakes were higher, and secrets of the universe felt like they were teetering on the brink of revelation. Who she was, what she knew, everything hinged on those precious seconds of silence, pregnant with unease. What would happen next in this electric clash of worlds? The answer was just out of reach. The darkness swallowed them whole. Ella could barely see her own hands, let alone the imposing figure of General Harrington just a few feet away. Her heart raced, pounding fiercely in her chest as every instinct told her to run. But something anchored her in place, a blend of fear and resolve. Suddenly, the emergency lights bloomed to life, casting an eerie glow over the small room. Shadows danced like wraiths on the walls, and she caught the apprehensive expressions of the general and the agents. Harrington's face hardened, his military training kicking in even amid the chaos. Agents, get the backup generator online. We need power now. His voice sliced through the tension, fierce and commanding. Ella remained silent, processing the situation. Just moments ago, she'd been a simple janitor, but now, with the world collapsing into darkness around her, she felt that pulse of power rise inside. Could this be the moment? Would she finally be able to step into the light? What are you standing there for? Harrington barked, dragging Ella back to reality. What's your name? His eyes searched hers, as if willing her to break the spell of silence. Ella, she managed to stammer, her voice barely reaching above a whisper. I clean here. A flicker of recognition crossed his eyes, but it was fleeting. You speak 9 languages, correct? The question didn't require an answer, it hung in the air, dripping with gravity. Her mind raced. She was no longer just a janitor standing in the shadows, she was a potential resource. Yes, she replied defiantly, her voice stronger now. I do. A moment of silence passed, thick with unsaid words and potential. An agent leaned in closer to Harrington, whispering urgently, General, it's true. We've been monitoring translations she made during shifts. It's how we caught wind of things. Ella's stomach twisted. They knew she was more than what she seemed. But this wasn't about her, it was about what they were up against. Why haven't you come forward? Harrington demanded. We need every bit of help we can get. I didn't think I was wanted, she said simply. I'm just a janitor, he interrupted, frustration spilling over. That's not good enough. We're facing a crisis, and you hold the keys. We need intelligence, insight. We're targeting a rogue operation tonight. You've heard the whispers, haven't you? The gravity of his words hit her like a punch to the gut. The whispers she had caught, they were real and dangerous. Ella swallowed hard, clarity dawning on her. I can help, she said, her voice steadier. Just then, the storm outside roared in tandem with the sudden blare of alarms piercing through the halls. Something had gone wrong. Ella felt the hair on her arms stand up. The building, once a fortress of secrets, suddenly felt vulnerable. Secure the perimeter. We're not alone. Harrington barked, voice commanding a fierce urgency. Ella found herself swept into a whirlwind of motion, agents rushing past her, radios crackling with frantic orders. Her heart raced with uncertainty and thrill. She would have to put her knowledge on the line, but now she was no longer in the shadows. She was on the front lines. Before she could gather her thoughts, a loud crash echoed from the hallway behind them, the sound sending a chill down her spine. Ella's breath hitched. What or who had just invaded their sanctuary? The general turned sharply to her, urgency etched in his features. Prepare yourself, Ella. Your time has come. We need to know everything you've heard. Start now. Ella stared into the unknown, nerves tingling with a mix of fear and exhilaration. The shadows had only just begun to reveal their secrets, but who was lurking just beyond? The storm outside had rattled far more than the windows. This was the moment she had been waiting for. Or was it opening a door she could never close? As the noise grew louder, Ella clenched her fists, resolved. The next move was hers, and the game had only just begun. The door slammed open, reverberating through the trembling walls, and in that fractured moment, fear dropped like a heavy weight in the pit of Ella's stomach. A tall figure emerged, silhouetted against the chaos outside. From where she stood, Ella could barely make out the features through the dim light, but something about the stance screamed danger. Get back! Harrington shouted as he aimed his weapon at the shadowy intruder. The agent nearest to Ella lunged forward, but the figure twisted, fluid and swift. What followed felt like a blur, a flash of noise, a struggle, and the agent was disarmed, his weapon clattering to the floor like a shattered promise. What the hell is happening? Ella shouted, her voice cracking. A sinking sensation wrapped around her heart. She was on the precipice of a nightmare unfolding. The newcomer stepped into the light, revealing a face that was disturbingly familiar. It was Agent Carter, a trusted member within their ranks now transformed into a wild-eyed specter of chaos and rage. No way, Ella gasped, shaking her head in disbelief. Was it possible that he had been compromised? The whispers in the darkness danced again in her mind, but now they threatened to suffocate her. Carter! Harrington yelled, urgency taut in his voice. Stand down. What's your status? 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 Carter's voice echoed, frothing with anger. I'm done taking orders. You've been lying to us, General. All of us have been pawns in your high-stakes game. Ella felt the air thicken with tension. Every agent was on high alert, pulse rates quickening as they processed what was happening in front of them. Carter had crossed a line and placed them all in jeopardy, but what lay behind his eyes was something more profound, a relentless fury fueled by betrayal. "Carter, think about what you're doing," one of the agents pleaded, reaching for him in vain. "This is about survival," he shouted, resolve hardening his features. "You think you're fighting the right enemy? You're clueless, General. The real threat is among us." His eyes landed on Ella, cold and accusing. "And it's people like her who keep us in the dark." Ella's breath caught, the walls closing in. Was he going to expose her? Did he know the truths she had buried deep? She kept her secrets for a reason. "Stop!" Ella shouted, her voice cutting through the storm of chaos. "If you know something, you need to tell us now." Carter's laugh was hollow, almost insane, as he pointed an accusing finger. "She knows more than you think. You think she's just a janitor. You've turned her into a weapon. We all have." The accusation hung heavy in the air. A weapon? Ella felt her heart race as everything spun around her. "Get back!" Harrington barked. "Ella, what do you know?" "Right now." In an instant, her world shifted. The weight of his gaze was more than she could bear. She could feel the walls pressing down on her. "I heard things. Talk of alliances, deals made in shadows," she stammered, the truth pouring out unbidden, fueled by the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "But I didn't know they were real." "For God's sake, Ella, we need coherence, not vague whispers." Harrington snapped, desperation creeping into his voice. Carter sneered, his laughter a chilling echo against the urgency of the moment. "You all think you're in control. But the game's about to change and the rules will be rewritten." In that moment, the tension escalated. Ella's blood pulsed in her ears as she fought to gather her thoughts, knowing that every choice she made would ripple through the lives of everyone around her. Was she ready to confront the truth? And if she did, what would it draw her into? As the storm rattled the windows and the agents encircled her, the atmosphere was charged with uncertainty. The roiling darkness outside felt like a mirror to the chaos swirling within. "Ella," Harrington began, eyes locked on hers, "we need to know who you trust. The next move is critical and we're running out of time." With those words, everything shifted again. She could feel the heavy weight of responsibility resting on her shoulders. This was not just about survival, it was about choosing sides in a game far greater than she had ever imagined, but who would she side with? The storm outside poured relentlessly, growing louder, drowning out her thoughts. As she stared into the uncertain abyss, more questions consumed her. Would she become the weapon Carter suggested or take a stand to protect the fragile world around her? The answer was just beyond her reach, leaving her poised at the edge of a cliff, daring to leap into the unknown. Ella felt the pressure of Harrington's gaze weigh on her, like the air before a storm. Her heart thudded loudly against her ribcage, a frantic drum signaling the urgency of the moment. She glanced at Carter, whose anger seemed to pulse like a living thing. He looked ready to unleash more chaos as he stood there, cornering her with accusations that swirled in the room. I never wanted this," Ella stammered, shakily stepping backward, the chill of fear lacing her words. "I just wanted to do my job." "Your job?" Carter spat, his voice dripping with derision. "You call feeding intel into their hands a job? You're not innocent, Ella. You're the perfect cover." He laughed again, a sharp sound cutting through the tension. "Not how you imagined, right? Just a janitor, while we choke on lies and half-truths." The atmosphere curled with resentment. The agents around them edged closer, fingers hovering over their weapons as they shifted nervously, looking between Carter and Ella. The storm outside raged, wind howling ferociously as if to amplify the upheaval within. Harrington's voice surged with authority. "We can't afford to fracture. We need to hold ground against this threat. Ella, listen, what else do you know? Anything could tip the scale." Carter scoffed. Oh, she knows more than you realize. They use her as a pawn. You've all been where they want you. Hoodwinked. Ella shook her head, feeling the walls closing in. I truly don't know anything concrete, it's just whispers. Panic threaded through her words. But I've heard things about programs. Experiments. I thought it was just. Her voice faded as the enormity of her admission dawned on her. Something more serious than you thought? Harrington prodded, his eyes searching hers. Ella, don't hesitate. Lives are at stake. As the storm roared outside, Ella felt something else rise inside her. Anger. The walls began to crack, blurring as she pushed back against the tide of shame. I'm not your scapegoat, Carter. You're the one who's pulling strings. You were supposed to protect us. Carter's eyes flared, like embers catching fire. Protect you? You couldn't handle the truth even if it was standing in front of you. The whispers don't just affect your life, they affect every operation, every violation of trust we've ever known. The depth of his accusation struck Ella like a slap. What if he was right? She'd heard the hushed voices in the hallways, been part of the uneasy murmurs, but never allowed herself to believe they were warnings of a greater conspiracy. Suddenly, the lights flickered, plunging them into near darkness for a brief heartbeat, then sputtered back to life. Everyone in the room tensed. Shadows danced around them as urgency pierced the air, echoing the chaos outside. What was that? Someone whispered sharply. Carter seized the moment. You think this is a game? Wake up. The enemy is already here. They've been here, in your midst. The room erupted into silence, and all Ella could hear was her own breathing, frantic and uneven. Could there be truth in Carter's maniacal frenzy? Was the threat lurking closer than they realized? They'll come for us, he continued, voice low but intent. And when they arrive, you'll wish you had listened. You'll wish you had acted. And I will not be here to save you. A collective shiver ran through the agents. Ella's thoughts raced, visions of conspiracy and betrayal coiled tighter like a vine around her heart, but what was the core of this chaos? Who truly was the enemy? Was it the shadows she recognized? Or those she thought she could trust? As the wind howled in response to her turmoil, Harrington turned sharply to face them all. We need to formulate a plan now. Ella, if you're holding back any information. Before he could finish, an explosion erupted outside. The ground shook beneath their feet, a deafening roar that drowned out their thoughts. Glass shattered, raining shards like falling stars. Go. We need to move. Ella shouted, adrenaline surging through her veins. The storm they faced was now more than just a storm, a primal force of destruction was upon them, and within that tempest, shadows emerged from the darkness, creeping ever closer. As the figures blurred, Ella's heart hammered, and the chilling reality struck. She was standing on the threshold of catastrophe, the outcome resting on her choices. Would she embrace her hidden truth or let the storm consume them all? The answer trembled at the back of her mind, waiting for the right moment to surface. It was now or never. But the storm had only just begun. The air was thick with chaos as Ella's words echoed in her mind. The explosion outside sent tremors through the foundation, and the oppressive weight of the moment bore down on her like a ton of bricks. Each agent moved with purpose, their instincts to survive kicking in as they filled the small room with an energy that buzzed like a live wire. Out! Now! Harrington shouted, his voice strong above the din. He was already moving, guiding the group through the back exit, eyes sharp, focusing on the unseen enemy. Ella stumbled after him, her heart racing as adrenaline coursed through her veins. She caught a glimpse of Carter lingering in the doorway, a broad grin spreading across his face that sent chills spiraling down her spine. Enjoy the show, Ella. He called after her, his laughter flying on the wind that rattled the building. The laughter turned to grotesque echoes in her mind, a reminder that maybe he had been right. Maybe they were pawns stuck in a game far bigger than they realized. No time for this. Harrington barked, pulling her back into focus. They rushed through corridors illuminated by flickering emergency lights. The walls seemed to shift, the shadows stretching and twisting like they had lives of their own. Every sound became magnified, the rush of footsteps, distant shouting, the remnants of the explosion rattling in her ears. Each flickering bulb added to the surreal atmosphere around them. Ella gasped, stopped by the sudden thought. What if he was a part of this? What if it hadn't been a gamble but a plan all along? Don't think about him. Harrington snapped, interrupting her thoughts. We need to regroup with the others. Your word carries weight now, Ella. Before she could respond, the hallway lit up with the flare of gunfire down the corridor. The crack of bullets splitting the air sent shudders through her body. Hurry! Harrington shouted again, urgency dying to a sharp edge in his voice. They ducked around a corner, heart racing. The metallic tang of fear saturated the air. Ella's instincts screamed to freeze, to blend into the surroundings. She wanted to disappear. But the memories flooded back what she had overheard, the pieces of information that slipped through the seams of her everyday life as a janitor, the whispers of secret projects, coded sentences drifted through the air. Just as she hesitated, the weight of it all crashed down again. Those snippets meant something now. Were they meant to warn her? Or betray her? Harrington paused, scanning the area. We need shelter, his voice low, steady. Where are we going? Ella's mind worked feverishly. The break room, it's got a security lock. If we can get there, we can barricade ourselves. Lead the way. The clatter of footsteps closed in around them, so Ella sprinted down the hallway, fear pushing her faster. Her heart thumped with every step. Would they make it? As they neared the break room, Ella turned back. The faces of her team, their resolve grim and tense, weighed heavily on her. They were counting on her now. Suddenly, the air surged with an electrifying jolt. The blast of another explosion rattled the building, sending her crashing to the ground. The world blurred as she hit the floor, a brief moment of stillness before despair set in. Ella! Harrington rushed to help her up, urgency filled with fear. We cannot fail, stay with me. As she pushed herself off the ground, something caught her eye through the thickening smoke. Dark shapes moved at the edges, creeping into the light. They were all around them now, a pack closing in, their intent twisted and malevolent. Get inside. Lock it down. Harrington shouted with a fierce command. She dashed towards the break room door but paused, something in her gut screaming to look back. The shadows danced eerily, and amidst them, a familiar figure emerged. Carter stood there, smirking, his outline wreathed in smoke, a ghost mocking her torment. You think you can escape this? He taunted, voice dripping with disbelief. This is just the beginning. In an instant, the reality of everything crashed into her, her past. Life as a seemingly inconsequential janitor flooding her thoughts. She had learned to survive time and again, yet now it seemed like survival would demand more than just her instincts. What power lay untapped within her? What if her understanding of the whispers was crucial in this moment? But time was slipping through her fingers like sand, and choices loomed ominously ahead. Go, Ella. Now. Harrington's voice rang clear as bullets struck the wall beside them. The moment had come. Would she step fully into her truth, or let the storm swallow her whole? With a surge of clarity, Ella pushed the door open, ready to embrace the chaos. But as shadows invaded her vision, one question echoed in her mind: when the truth emerged, would it shatter everything she knew, or offer a pathway to salvation? Ella's heart raced as she slammed the break room door behind her. The air felt charged with anticipation, every sound amplified as the echoes of chaos thudded against the thick walls. She leaned against the door, hearing the urgent pounding of Harrington's footsteps right behind her. Lock it! He shouted, as if the world outside was collapsing into madness. She fumbled with the security mechanism, her fingers trembling, fear and adrenaline intertwining. Hurry! Harrington's voice cut through the noise, sharp. With a breathless click, the door bolted shut, sealing them into the dimly lit room. The glow of emergency lights filtered through the narrow window, casting a ghostly illumination on the haphazardly arranged furniture, a coffee table strewn with crumpled papers and empty cups, like remnants of a long-forgotten meeting. They were safe for now, but danger hovered like a storm cloud, thick and suffocating. Ella collapsed onto one of the chairs, her chest heaving, the weight of the moment crashing over her like a tidal wave. "Did they see us?" she gasped, trying to latch onto some semblance of control. Harrington paced the small space, his expression a mix of determination and worry. "We need to assess the situation. Can you recall anything? Any details that might help?" His brow furrowed, eyes flicking to the door as if expecting it to burst open at any second. All the pieces of her fractured memory flared to life. The whispers, the coded conversations in the hallways, they were talking about a plan, she stammered. "I thought it was just some work project, but now you're thinking it's much more." Harrington leaned closer, his gaze piercing through her turmoil. "Ella, those snippets could be critical. Do you remember anything specific?" She closed her eyes, the echoes of the past flooding back. There was talk of location codes, something about an operation called Blue Horizon, but it felt so vague. "I never considered it anything but chatter." "Blue Horizon?" His voice sharpened, realizing the significance. "That name has come up in discussions tied to high-risk missions," and a loud thud outside interrupted him, sending a jolt of fear through them both. Ella swallowed hard. What if it's more than we think? What if Carter is involved? He always had a way of knowing things, manipulating things. Carter's a distraction. "We need to focus on what's in front of us," Harrington urged, his voice steadying her spiraling thoughts. "Can we use what you overheard to turn this around? We might not have much time." As the shadow of uncertainty grew heavier, Ella struggled to harness the fears clawing at her gut. The walls of her mundane life had cracked open, revealing a world of peril and possibilities she never thought existed. Suddenly, she felt a pulse of clarity. There was something else about a location, a warehouse. They spoke about transferring critical assets there, assets that could turn the tide. What did they look like? Harrington pressed, urgency forcing his words out in quick bursts. "Any names?" "Just initials." "I think it was CV," or the ground beneath felt like it shifted suddenly as she recalled a fleeting moment from her past. "And a date." "They kept saying tomorrow like it was a deadline." "Ella, that could be it. If that's true, we have to move. We can't let them transfer whatever they're planning." Harrington ran his fingers through his hair, pacing like a trapped tiger. "But how?" Ella felt the weight of despair mixing with the spark of determination. Harrington stopped, his eyes hardening. "We need to find a way to get out, get reinforcements, get the intel. We can't keep running." Just then, the door shuddered violently. Hard knocks echoed in insistence. Their hearts dropped as the sounds grew louder, sharper. "Open the door. We know you're in there." A deep voice barked, mixed with laughter that sounded like thunder rolling in. Ella's pulse thundered in her ears. This was it. The choice lay before her: a leap into darkness or the chance to uncover truths that could save them all. A smear of courage ignited within. "Say nothing. Let me handle this," she whispered, adrenaline fueling her as she approached the door, a tingle of raw determination igniting every nerve in her body. But just as she was about to act, a heavy silence fell. The shadowy figures outside paused, and a chilling calm seeped into the air. Something was off. What was brewing beyond that door, and would they be prepared for what came next? The world outside felt like it was holding its breath, waiting for her to decide if she would plunge into the unknown. The silence stretched unbearably, wrapping around Ella like a thick fog. She pressed her ear against the cool metal of the door, straining to catch any sound that might betray their pursuers. Harrington stood back, fingers twitching as he prepared for an inevitable confrontation. Then came the unmistakable sound of footsteps retreating. The weight of their presence lifted slightly, but the tension remained. Ella stepped back, uncertain. "Are they gone?" she whispered, while Harrington shook his head, his expression didn't waver. No, not yet. A second later, a chilling laugh rang out. Back in your little hidey hole. The voice taunted, heavy with condescension. We know you're still in there. The fun is just beginning. The laughter echoed off the walls, sending shivers down Ella's spine. Fun. She muttered, anger bubbling beneath the surface. They're playing with us, but why? Harrington's face tightened. We can't stay hidden forever. If they know we're here, it's only a matter of time before they figure out how to get in. Okay, then let us think, Ella urged, heart racing anew. What was said outside? Did they mention anything that could help us understand their motives? Harrington squinted, trying to piece it together. Something about it being just a game, but that doesn't make any sense. Ella's mind raced with possibilities. What if they're not interested in us at all? What if we're just a distraction for something bigger? His eyes widened as realization washed over him. You might be onto something. Their focus could be that operation. If that is true, we need to find a way to reach it first. But as she thumbed through the chaos of her thoughts, a grim realization struck. And if we're too late? They shared a long look, an understanding igniting as dread loomed heavily. We won't let that happen, Harrington said with a conviction that was almost comforting. Suddenly, the door rattled hard. A powerful shove sent it bursting against the wall, slamming against the shelves behind it. It bounced back, leaving only an entrance wide enough for shadowy figures to spill into the break room. Surprise! Snarled a man with cold eyes and a smirk that sent goosebumps crawling across Ella's arms. He stepped forward, flanked by two others, both menacing in their silence. I hope we didn't interrupt anything important, he sneered, taking a predatory step toward them. Harrington instinctively pushed Ella behind him, his muscles tensing. Who are you? He demanded, voice steady despite the chaos in that instant. We're the ones who are asking the questions, the man replied, examining them both. Start talking, and maybe, just maybe, you'll walk out of here. Ella's mind raced, adrenaline coursing through her veins. This wasn't just about survival anymore, it was about outsmarting them, grabbing whatever chance they had. What do you want? She managed to say, her voice steadier than she felt. What we want is what you might know. He leaned in closer, eyes narrow and calculating. About Blue Horizon. A pulse of shock coursed through her. They were clearly after what she had overheard. Before she could compute the best response, Harrington lunged slightly forward. We don't know what you're talking about. The man chuckled, a sound unsettling in its casualness. That's not what the others said, and now you're going to find out just how deeply you've stirred the pot. Trust me, you don't want to play games with us. Ella's heart sank. The threat was explicit, and the stakes were rising quickly. Get ready, Harrington whispered to her, tension crackling between them. As they both prepared to react, the air thickened with impending darkness. The weight of what lay ahead loomed larger than the figures before them, but someone else had entered the equation. A new voice chimed in from the back, cutting through the thick tension. Well, isn't this an interesting development? The man turned sharply, eyes flicking to the newcomer with a flash of irritation. Ella's gaze followed, locking eyes with a figure cloaked in shadows, a presence that radiated authority. Who are you? The man demanded, an edge to his voice. The newcomer stepped into the light, revealing an all too familiar face. Ella gasped. You? But how? The situation had spiraled beyond her control, but hope roared within her. The key to survival might be standing right there in front of her, though the question now was whether it was friend or foe. Ella's breath hitched as she waited for the answer, the world teetering on the edge of chaos. What had this unexpected twist brought, and would it lead them to safety or deeper into the abyss? The charged atmosphere felt electric, caught between uncertainty and the sudden shift introduced by the newcomer. Ella felt her heart hammering in her chest. The familiar face before her could either be their salvation or the knife that plunged deeper into their already fraught reality. Ella, the figure said, their voice a mix of urgency and familiarity. "We need to talk. Now." Harrington's grip on Ella tightened, his instinct screaming to beware. "What is going on? Who are you? Stop." The man with the cold eyes barked, his face darkening. "You don't get to dictate the pace here. This is our game." He turned back towards the newcomer, a flicker of irritation crossing his features. "And who the hell are you supposed to be?" "I'm someone who knows things," the newcomer replied coolly, undeterred. "And I know exactly who you are." The tension crackled fiercely, each word weighing heavily in the air. Ella held her breath, unsure whether to feel relieved or terrified. The icy glare exchanged between the shadowy figure and the cold-eyed man spoke volumes, and an instinct urged her to lean in closer. "Let us not waste time. We don't have much of it," Ella's former colleague continued. "They're not just here for a chat. The operation is at risk, and if we don't act, everything could implode." "What operation?" Harrington challenged, pushing himself forward as Ella's heart twisted at the thought of what they might be on the verge of uncovering. The cold-eyed man laughed, a cruel, mirthless sound. "You honestly think you'll figure this out? You haven't even scratched the surface. But it doesn't matter because it looks like you're all about to become part of the story." Ella's mind raced. The once inconsequential chatter about Blue Horizon echoed in her thoughts, piece by piece, fitting together like a jigsaw puzzle she didn't even know she was solving. What if this was about more than just a game? What if the stakes were lives? "Ella," the shadows softened with her name, snapping her focus back to the newcomer. Panic flashed in their eyes as they shifted half towards the shadowy figures and half towards Ella. "You can't trust them. We need to move," or he before the warning could finish, the cold-eyed man lunged, knocking the newcomer aside. The move was smooth, ruthless, calculated. Harrington quickly brought his arm up, intercepting an incoming blow and sending one of the other shadowy figures sprawling back. "Run!" he shouted to Ella, who was frozen in place. A fight was erupting around her, chaos unscrewing their fragile sense of security. Ella struggled to take a step, her mind contradicted by the frantic shouts and clashes of fists. But trusting Harrington was natural. With a fierce determination, she bolted towards the exit, heart pounding in a frantic rhythm. But the shadows moved faster. Another of the attackers aimed for her, and in an instant, Harrington pushed Ella aside, taking the full force of the blow instead. She gasped, horrified, as he staggered back, narrowly avoiding a more devastating fall. "Stay focused, don't look back," he yelled, gripping his side. The urgency in his voice fueled her legs to move. As they reached the door, Ella glanced behind. The cold-eyed man was turning, rage etched across his features, but the shadows quickly swarmed around him, creating an impenetrable wall. "Go!" the familiar figure yelled urgently, eyes locked on the retreating pair. "I'll hold them off." With one last look filled with uncertainty, Ella rushed through the door, Harrington right at her heels. They stumbled out into the dim hallway that led into an open space beyond. "Do you know where we're going?" Harrington gasped, clutching his ribs, pain etched on his face. "Follow me." Ella panted, her own fatigue surging underneath the adrenaline of the moment. They darted into a corridor fraught with shadows and echoes, and then, a deafening crash resonated through the hall. A wall exploded suddenly, debris flying in all directions, forcing them to the ground. Dust filled the air, thick and choking, and shadows danced ominously against the fading light. "We need to get to the next destination." They stop. Ella shouted, eyes wide. They couldn't linger, seconds felt like hours. The return of the menacing figures couldn't be too far behind. Stumbling forward, they reached a dim exit sign flickering erratically in the distance. But as the slight glow drew closer, Ella noticed another figure emerging from the haze. A flicker of recognition ignited within her, sending a chill down her spine. "Ella!" the shadow called out, voice low and sweet, suddenly turning brittle and cold. You thought you could escape? Ella's heart dropped as recognition hit like a fist. This voice belonged to someone she knew all too well, someone she'd never expected to see in a moment like this. Suddenly, the world narrowed into a single point. How could allies become enemies? And what choices would these intertwining paths force her to confront? As the figure stepped closer, cloaked in intent and malice, Ella faced a dreadful revelation. Whatever game they played, the stakes had just escalated dramatically. Run! Harrington shouted again, but the words felt like an empty prayer in the suddenly overwhelming darkness. Ella's breath caught, each inhale steeped in fear as the familiar face loomed before her like a specter from her past, asking questions she wasn't ready to answer. Were they truly safe? Or had they crossed a line from which there would be no return? Ella's breath quickened as emotions tangled in her chest, a wild mix of betrayal and confusion. The figure stepping into the dim light bore a face she'd once trusted, a face she had thought was lost forever. It was Dina, her former mentor, her guide through countless convoluted assignments, now illuminated by the harsh glow of danger. Ella, Dina whispered, eyes glinting with an intensity that sent a shiver deep down her spine. What are you doing here? Why are you here? Ella retorted, her voice growing stronger despite the panic swelling within. Are you with them? Have you been part of this the whole time? Dina's lips curled in a sardonic smile, but there was something cold about the way she held herself. You really don't get it, do you? They're more than just goons with a vendetta. Everything is interconnected. Harrington stepped forward, grimacing as he braced himself against the wall for support. We don't have time for riddles. They're coming. We need a plan. Pain twisted his features, but the adrenaline coursing through him kept him upright. Dina's gaze shifted from Ella to Harrington, measuring the tension. You think the shadows are your enemies? They're merely tools in a much larger game. Right now, we're all pawns. Stop talking in circles. Ella growled. What's your role in this? Are you helping them or trying to warn us? A rush of desperation twisted her words into a plea, tinged with the remnants of trust that still held her bound to Dina. Both, came the clipped reply. But the clock is running out, and you're wasting time. They won't just let you escape. A thunderous crash echoed from behind them, the sound of footsteps quickly approaching. Ella could feel her heart race, blood pounding in her ears. We can't stay here. We need to go now. Fine. Follow me, Dina urged, moving swiftly as the shadows drew closer. One moment they were alone in a fading light, and the next, a chaos of footsteps and voices barreled down the corridor, angry and hungry for retribution. They dashed through the flickering exit sign, plunging into an open space that smelled of stagnant air and abandonment. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, illuminating dust motes swirling like ghosts in an unsettling dance. There was no hiding now. They were exposed. Where do we go? Harrington gasped, glancing back nervously, chest heaving from pain and exhaustion. Follow me. Dina commanded, leading them deeper into the heart of the building. We need a safe spot to regroup. There's more at stake than you realize. As they ran, Ella's mind raced. Every step echoed like drumbeats in an escalating conflict. Was Dina pulling them to safety or deeper into a snare? They turned down a narrow hall leading to a security door. Dina quickly punched in a code, the light flashing green as the lock disengaged with a satisfying click. She motioned them inside the small, cramped room. Get in. She said urgently, pushing Harrington, who stumbled inside, and then Ella. The moment the door slammed shut behind them, the noise from the outside dulled into a haunting silence that made Ella's skin crawl. The trio stood in darkness, hearts racing, heavy breaths mingling together. Now what? Harrington whispered, a nervous edge fraying his voice. Now we wait, Dina replied, smoothing her hair back with a shaky hand. And hope they don't find us before we can figure out our next move. Ella felt a rush of dread. Why should I trust you? What if you're just playing us? What if you were always in on it? Dina looked hurt, genuine alarm shadowing her features. "You know me, Ella. I trained you for this. We've faced danger together before. I care about the bigger mission." The shadows outside muffled footsteps, and silence swallowed the space around them, thick with the weight of secrets. Suddenly, a low voice seeped through the door, cold and menacing. "You think you can hide? We know where you are." The voice sent shivers down Ella's spine. "Stay quiet," Dina whispered, pressing her finger to her lips, eyes wide with fear. But Ella felt herself slipping, caught in a storm of doubt. Between the trust she had once placed in her mentor and the unrelenting reality of their current situation. "Why should we believe you?" Ella pressed, voice trembling slightly. "What if you're playing both sides?" Before Dina could answer, the door rattled violently, reverberating with impending violence. And just like that, as the chaos encroached upon them, Ella's world shrank down to the space between the thumping of her heart and the dark realities waiting just beyond the door. Would they be able to escape the encroaching shadows? Or were they already trapped, ensnared in a game much larger than they could fathom? The echoes of chaos blurred into a deafening symphony as the cold, menacing voice slipped through the door, breaking through the tension like a knife. Ella's heart raced, each beat roaring in her ears. She pressed against the wall as if hoping to sink into it, escape the peril closing in on her. "Ella," Dina whispered, desperation lacing her voice. "We need to stay calm. Remember our training." Training. A term that had once provided security now felt like a fragile thread. Dina had guided her through countless operations, but now, trust hung precariously on a knife edge. Another rattle shook the door. "You think we'll let you hide?" The voice dripped with malice, igniting Ella's fear into a full blaze. "Do something," Harrington hissed, his body on high alert. The pain etched on his face only added to the urgency in the air. "Back off!" Dina yelled, her authority igniting a spark of defiance in Ella. "You don't want this to escalate." The rattling intensified, the intruder's persistence pounding like a drum against Ella's resolve. What lay on the other side was terrifying, but what if the greatest danger was in the ally she once trusted? Suddenly, the sound of rapid footsteps echoed in the hallway and paused just outside the door. Ella exchanged glances with Harrington, their expressions mirrored the urgency and tension fraying at the seams. Then, in a moment that felt suspended in time, the door swung wide open, the shadow of a figure filled the frame, their presence stormy and imposing. Ella's breath caught in her throat. It was Carter, the once trusted ally who had upended her world. Well, he sneered, eyes sparkling with manic fury. "Look who we have here." "No. You shouldn't have let him in," Dina shouted, realization dawning. Carter stepped forward, the edges of darkness swirling around him. "Trust is a fickle thing, don't you think? Just like this little operation you've been running." Ella's heart thudded painfully. "You're a traitor." "Am I?" He laughed, a harsh, unhinged sound. "No, I'm just the architect who has finally taken control. You're all mere pawns in my game. Blue Horizon. That operation is just the start. You thought you could keep this from me?" Ella clenched her fists, fury igniting inside her. This was her moment, the moment she could rise above the fear and confusion binding her. "You're wrong, Carter. I know the truth, and it's time to make a choice. We either stand together against you, or watch everything spiral into chaos." Carter's eyes narrowed, and he shot a glance to Harrington, who stood ready, poised for any action. "You really believe they'll protect you? You think they care?" "I do," Ella shot back, her voice rising, fear replaced by conviction. "We're not just going to let you take control. I've heard the whispers. I've seen the shadows." Carter's smile fell, replaced by a fierce intensity. "Then you know too much, don't you? And knowing too much is a liability." Suddenly, a loud explosion ripped through the hallway, the force sending shockwaves against the walls. Dust and debris rained down, and for a heartbeat, chaos crashed all around them. Ella, propelled by instinct, bolted for the door. "Come on." Carter lunged for her, but Harrington moved faster, gripping his shoulder and spinning him away. "Not today." Ella dashed into the corridor, breathing in the fresh air that felt resonated with hope. She spotted an exit sign flickering nearby, casting a pulsating light filled with possibility. Behind her, sounds of struggle erupted, but she didn't look back. She sprinted through the hall, moving toward freedom and purpose. "Ella, wait!" Harrington shouted, catching up, determination painted across his face. They barreled into the open space, stepping into a tunnel of blinding white light. They stumbled forward, hands brushing against the crumbling walls. It felt like they were running through the remnants of their past, every choice, every betrayal carving their path. But as they rounded a corner, a shadow stepped into their path. It was Dina, anguish etched on her face. "Ella." "Harrington. Help." She was breathless. But the shift in her tone snapped Ella's focus. "What happened?" Ella gasped, her instincts flaring up like an alarm. "They're everywhere. Watching. Dangerous." Striking words, dangerous truths hung in the air like thick fog. Yet there was clarity in Dina's gaze. Her urgency felt real, raw. "Then we can't stop now. We have to get out of here." Ella took a breath, her heart quickening not just with fear but with belief. "We can dismantle their operation together, all of us. The pieces are more significant than the sum of our fears." Dina's eyes flickered, the shadow of her resolve glimmering. "We can't let them win. I know the way out. If we can reach the control room, we can override the system, halt Blue Horizon, and expose the truth." Ella nodded, her instincts aligning with Dina's renewed determination. "Lead the way." As they navigated the wreckage around them, the growl of chaos echoed behind them. But Ella felt a spark of hope rising within the storms of shadows. The storm had raged long enough. Now it was time to reclaim their narrative. Emerging into a clearing, they paused. The control room loomed ahead, like a glint of salvation. "This is it. We can do this together." The signs of an impending battle hung in the air, but united in purpose, they pushed forward. The shadows encroached, but Ella took a breath, pulling on the strength coursing through her veins. This was not just about survival anymore. It was about transformation, about stepping into the light. And they were not just janitors swept into a storm, they were the storm. "Let us do this," Ella said, her voice steady, locking eyes with Harrington and Dina, sensing the shift beneath their feet. This was more than a mission now, it was a fight for the truth against a tide that wanted to drown them. With heart pounding, they plunged toward the control room, ready to confront the darkness consuming them all. The choice made, the shadows would no longer define their fate. Together, they began to rewrite their story. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. Instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support, and don't wait even one more second to share.